Hello, and welcome to an overview of skills-based career pathways. So the first thing I want to talk about is really thinking about skill-based individual career development plans. We often ask children, what do they want to be when they grow up? We ask adolescents, what do you want to study in college? And we ask adults, what do you do for a living? The problem with this approach is that it presumes that we have enough information to know the best answer, and it doesn't really provide space for clarifying questions. What if individuals only know that they like to work with their hands, but they don't understand how a certification or a job in the architecture world would enable them to do just that? As individuals, we may know what we like to do and what we excel at, but we may not understand the multitude of ways these skills can translate into careers or college. The fact is, how many of us are truly equipped with enough life experience, self-knowledge, and information about suitable careers in our teens? Today, there are an endless number of options, many of which didn't exist 10 years ago. So thinking about skill-based individual career development plans is essential. So we've talked about creating a plan to develop skills. But what skills specifically should we look to cultivate? And so think about this in terms of developing a T or an M-shaped skill set. You want to have a broad base of skills and a little bit of knowledge in as many things as possible. So think about developing basic customer service skills, communication skills, sales skills, office, scheduling, some of the most common and in-demand skills regardless of your industry or regardless of what you're doing. But then you also want to think about having a few deep technical skills, having those specialties where you can really add unique and specific value. And the value of having that depth and those specific skills is that you can really focus on the skills that are going to promote resiliency. And what I mean by that is there's been some research to suggest that there are 3 types of skills that really make an individual more resilient to changes in market forces or changes in the labor market conditions, where if you have technical skills, thinking about that either as technology and coding and development skills, or core business skills in terms of operations, finance, business management. Having that type of technical skills, that's one thing that'll help promote resilience. Another thing is having strong human skills, having that strong personal connection, being able to communicate, conduct sales, that's going to create a lot of value as well. And then lastly, having those hard to find skills for your local region is another thing that will develop resiliency. And so now let's really dig into what are those specific skills you should focus on as you're developing your skills for the Charlotte job market. And so on the screen, I've got the top skills demanded from all job postings in Mecklenburg County throughout 2020. On the left-hand side of the screen, what I've got are those baseline skills. Developing that broad base, really again, thinking about developing some level of these skills, as many as you can. It doesn't have to be super deep, but having general understanding of as many of these skills as possible is really going to help set you apart. On the right-hand side of the screen, what I have are those specialized skills. These are specialties. So becoming a specialist in at least one of these areas, really making sure you have that depth and that you're really becoming an expert in at least one of these areas or as many as you can handle. But another thing I really wanted to point out here is that the baseline skills and the specialized skills, they aren't mutually exclusive. And again, developing that broad base is actually something that can help you develop more specialties. And if that's not immediately clear to you, let me just go ahead and draw a couple of corollaries between the baseline skills on the left and the specialized skills on the right. And so what I really wanted to focus on is that if you look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see detail-oriented is called out as a baseline skills. You'll see planning is called out as a baseline skill. And organizational skills and problem solving, these are all skills that are called out as just basic general skills that are in demand. But if you go over to the right-hand side on the specialized skills, some of the top skills you'll see scheduling and project management. And if you think about it, if you are detail-oriented, if you're able to solve a problem, if you've got those organizational skills, over time that can develop into a scheduling skill. And over time, again, with experience and certifications, that can even develop into a project management skill. As you get comfortable with more complex scheduling and interdependencies, those skills can evolve and continue to develop. So again, don't think about it in terms of, I have to master all of these skills and they won't help me in developing these specialties. That's not necessarily true. finding those areas and opportunities for synergies where you can develop a baseline skill and then through experience and some additional education or certifications, it can become a specialized skill. Okay, so now you might say, all right, I've developed that broad base and I've got a few specialties. Now what? How does that translate to my career pathway? And thinking about in terms of, I've got that problem solving skill. Well, there aren't a lot of jobs that are just saying problem solvers needed. So how does that translate and what industries and what specific areas should I be looking at? And so just to drive that point home, again, what I've got on the screen is research from that earlier point about developing resilient skills, and again, highlighting the connection between skills and various career areas. And so you could look at this instead of saying, what career area should you focus on? Again, we talked about this. You may not know what's actually best for you. You may not have enough information. But by having those skills, again, as individual, you can be able to look at this and say, hey, I've got 3 of those 6 skills. So what would be the best fit for me? That's going to provide you with a more malleable framework to understand what career pathways that might be non-intuitive, that you might not have a good understanding of, would actually be viable options for you. And so this just provides that highlight again, just to drive home that point that skills are not demanded in a specific industry only, and they can be transferred across industries. So just kind of translating skills to career areas. All right, so now we've talked about developing that individual skills-based plan. We talked about what goes into that plan, how you develop that broad base of general skills, and then you develop specialties at depth in a few specific areas. We zoomed into Charlotte to talk specifically about what those skills are in Charlotte, what skills people should be focusing on developing. Then we talked a little bit about how those skills can be translated across different career areas. But again, I want to zoom in to say, how can you actually translate what skills you have into different career areas? And so on the screen, I've got a few different levels for this. I've got 3 different levels where I want to walk through this. First is the foundational level. If you're just starting out and you're just getting introduced to this, this is a great place to start. This is how you can align your interests with various different career areas. And so the College Foundation for North Carolina has this tool where you can go and just really tell them about yourself, what you like to do, what you don't like to do. And at the end of this assessment, it'll give you an analysis and it'll tell you what career areas are a fit for you. So again, that's a good starting point for really translating your interests into potential career areas that are a fit. And so that's just the starting point. But then the next thing that I've got is kind of that first step. This is going to take some general skills and going to start to give you more specific positions that would be a fit given your skills. And so Career One Stop has put out this tool where this is going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 5 some questions, and it's going to be subjective about how good are you at these various different things. And then it'll give you various positions that would be a fit and an overview of those positions based on your responses to those questions. So that's a good start as well if you're really looking for a specific role. The last thing that I've got here is really more of that personalized plan. So this is really going to help you develop a personalized skill roadmap based on where you are and where you'd like to go in your career. And so this is put out by MZ, and this is a matching tool where you can get really detailed. You tell it exactly what your skills are, you tell it your certifications, it'll analyze your resume, you can go through and tell it, here are the skills I have, and it'll give you some suggestions both in terms of careers that are a good fit for you, what's in demand locally, jobs that are available, and then also education and certification opportunities that would help you become more competitive for certain positions. It'll identify if there is a specific certification, for example, maybe a project management cert. Maybe you've been doing a lot of scheduling and planning and working on projects a long time, but you just don't have that project management certification. It'll give you some of that guidance to help you know exactly what you should be focused on to be more competitive for specific positions.